Okay, in progress, yeah. Let's see. I think we're on Kuf Zion Amud Beis by Itmar. Itmar is 10 lines up from the wide lines. From the, yes. And the wrong volume. Okay, thank Hashem. Able to find Torah every day. In the course of our learning, we should have the base of English immediately. Very interesting Gemara that we're about to learn. This Gemara is also in Megillah. The Zitmar was stated as follows. Maila Bishman Hazeh. Talking about offering a sacrifice outside the temple and the prohibition of slaughtering or offering. Let's say someone offers a sacrifice nowadays when there's no Beis Hamikdash. So is that considered Maila B'chutz? So Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev. Rabbi Yochanan says yes, that is Maila B'chutz, and the person is Chayev for doing that. And Rish Lakish Amar Pater. Lakish says that's Pater. That nowadays is a different story. It's only in the time of the Beis Hamikdash that you had this prohibition. You're supposed to bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, and you did it. Nowadays, there's no Beis Hamikdash, so you'd be Pater. So the Gemara explains. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev. Rabbi Yochanan says that it's Chayev Kedush Rishayna Kitchel Shaita V'Kitchel Asalavai. It says like this, that it doesn't matter that there's no Beis Hamikdash, because the original holiness when Shlomo built the Beis Hamikdash is still there. And it continues even after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Yerushalayim is considered the base of that area is still considered the base of Bechira. So therefore, there still is the prohibition to offer sacrifices on private altars. Rish Lakish Amar Pater. Rish Lakish says Pater. The original sanctification of the temple was originally, but it doesn't continue. So therefore, it's not considered that the chosen place is still there. There's no the prohibition of offering. It's not. My aunt is she's from Manhattan. My father was a chazan at the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue. Wow. So she said at one time, Erev Pesach, gets a call from someone from the police station or something about a guy that's slaughtering a Pascal lamb in Central Park or something like that. Oh, okay. And some Samaritan or something said that this is what he's got to do. And anyway.
Well, they have. I'm trying to.
Right.
On Harabias all the time.
Right. Now that on the Harabias could be actually a discussion. It could be this discussion. Kitcha l'shaita, kitcha l'salavai. Let's say it was kitcha l'salavai, and if you don't need the actual mizbeach, and you're in the area of Yerushalayim,
you're obliged.
Maybe you're I remember I was told that the first year after they got Yerushalayim, the Rebbe told the Chassidim not to be there for Pesach until he gets a chance to look into it. Wow. So the Gemara says, name of the beplukta, the Rebbe Lesser, Rebbe Yeshua, Kameflugi. Let's say that this machlokes that we just had between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, major machlokes, is actually precedes this machlokes back to the days of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, or the teachers of Rabbi Akiva, which was Avonkelos. It's the Tanan, as it was taught in the Mishnah, it goes like this. Rabbi Eliezer says, and when they were building the sanctuary in the days of Ezra by the second Beis Hamikdash. So I was describing this. Yeah. They were given permission to build by Koresh, but they didn't actually get it done until 22 years later because the permission was taken away. So there was like left in the middle.
The Kuti were bothered.
Yeah, they had trouble. But so 22 years later, I think, by Dayavish, they were able to finish it. So during this time, they made like curtains, like construction site curtains. In Kalam Bazara, they made curtains by the Heichal, they made curtains by the Azara. So they were like, it was set up like makeshift.
Almost like a Mishkan.
Right. However, that was in order for them to do the work. So they would do this. Ella shebeheichal bainan mibachutz. When it came to the Heichal, they put the curtains on the inside and they would build from the outside. So they weren't actually.
Didn't we say that when they built the Kodesh Kadoshim, the back?
Yeah.
Dropped in.
Yeah, that was fixing the walls, right. The golden walls. Wow. So, Azara bainan bifnim. And the Azara, they would put the curtain on the outside, and then they would put the building the wall. They were in the middle of the construction. They would build a wall inside the curtains. Now, Rabbi Yeshua says, Shemati shem makriven afapi shem bayis. Yeshua says that I was told that they were offering sacrifice even though the Beis Hamikdash wasn't built yet. And they were eating from the holy sacrifice even though the walls of the Azara weren't up. And they were eating Meiser Sheni and Kachim Kalam, which is permissible to be eaten in Yerushalayim, even though there were no walls because the original holiness was there, and so everything is in place. Now the Gemara understands from this that if that's what Rabbi Yeshua holds, that it was considered eligible to eat and all of that. So Lav Michlal the Rabbi Lezer Savalei Kitcha. Rabbi Lezer probably holds that it wasn't. It seems to be a machlekes here. So the machlekes, what would come out is machlekes Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish would be that Rabbi Yochanan holds like Rabbi Yeshua, that says Rabbi Yochanan said chayev today if someone offers a sacrifice today outside the temple, which is Rabbi Yeshua that holds that the Beis Hamikdash is still eligible to be used, even though it's not there. And Reish Lakish who holds Pater, would hold like Rabbi Lezer. Okay. The Gemara says, Amalei Ravino Ravashi Mimai. Says, who told you this? They're not arguing about Kedusha Rishayna Kitchel Shaita. If not, don't let the Kol Yalma Kitchel Rishayna Kitchel Shaita Kitchel Love. Maybe everyone holds that the Beis Hamikdash is eligible today. Mar Sava Mar my Deshmele Kamar Mar my Deshmele Kamar. Each one was just saying what they heard, the way they built it. This one said that they were. What happened? Rabbi Yeshua said that they. Rabbi Lezer says that they were building it with curtains, and Rabbi Yeshua didn't say anything about curtains. Rabbi Yeshua just said the way that they were eating. And there's no machlekes. It doesn't tell us that there's a machlekes. No one says that he was arguing. He was just saying what he heard. And if you're going to say Klarm Rabbi Lezer Lamalei, it sounds like the fact that they were putting up curtains was because they needed to do some sort of sanctification of that area. So they put up curtains to have a demarcation of which area is holy. That's what it sounded like. And that's what led us to believe that Rabbi Lezer says that the Kedusha of the first Beis Hamikdash wasn't there. And they needed to re-sanctify it, reconsecrate. So the Gemara says, no, maybe not. Maybe it's just Litznius B'Alma. It's just telling you that how they were going to work would be the most respectable way. Would be that they covered over the inner area, the curtains, so that they shouldn't be looking inside while they're doing their building. Okay, next statement. I think the Gemara in Megillah that has this elaborates a little more on Kiddush Rishon and Kitchel Shaita. And every once in a while, before Purim, you see these things in this from papers about finish the Masechta before Purim, one daf a day or something. We're getting there. Masechta Megillah. Over there you have this sugya. Itzmar Hamayla ve'im b'shir kazayis be'etzim hashlim l'kazayis. If someone offers up a carbon outside the temple, now it seems we had a discussion before. If you don't bring up the whole sacrifice, this may be maybe the pshat here is that the entire sacrifice was brought up and you're bringing up the last kazayas. That could be the pshat, or maybe it doesn't matter, and you're just offering up a kazayas. Now the problem is is that the actual part that you're putting up on the altar, the actual flesh that you're putting on the altar, doesn't have a kazayas, but because it's attached to a bone, some rib, so then together with the bone, there's a kazayas. Rabbi Yochanan says that the bone completes the shear, makes it a kazayas, makes it an olive size. Shalka says that you pater. No, you need a actual amount of flesh. Rabbi Yochanan chiburi oilen kailan dami. Rabbi Yochanan says it's chayev because anything that's attached to the oila, even if it's not supposed to be or it doesn't need to be burnt on the altar, but now that the fact that it's attached is considered that it's part of it. Shalka says that you're exempt because chiburi and lav kailan dami, because things that don't need to be on the altar, even if they're attached, are not don't complete the shear. Okay. Boy Rava. Rava has the following question. Amayla Reish ben Yaina Shein be Kazayas. Umelach Lashlim Kazayas Mahu. Before we had a question about the bone. Now we're asking a question about salt. Someone puts the head of a bird. The head of the bird doesn't have a kazayas. It could be very small. But there's a salt. The sacrifices were salted. Put it on salt first. So the salt that gets attached to it, probably because of the moisture, whatever. You dip it in, it has salt on it. So that completes the kazayas. Are you going to be chayev? Would a person be chayev that does this because he put a kazayas on an altar? Amalei Rava mi parzakia, the Ravashi. Rava mi parzakia says to Ravashi, Lav haina plugtai the Rabbi Yochanan Shlakish. That's exactly the machlekes before. Chiburi yolen koilen. Rabbi Yochanan said that you chayev because the bone completes the kazayas. And Rish Lakish said that you pater. It says Tibayla Rabbi Yochanan, Tibayla Rish Lakish. Actually, our question is on each of them independently. But Tibayla Rabbi Yochanan over there said that by the bone you'd be chayiv. Can I come Rabbi Yochanan hasamela etzem the mina de basar de basaru? Because since that's considered the bone is part of the meat, so it's considered part of the meat. The problem is abul melach the lav mina de baryano. No, it's something totally separate. Here you dipped it in the salt. That's supposed to create the kazayas, supposed to complete the shear. So that's a totally different story. Or maybe not. But we have a similar question to Rish Lakish, because Rish Lakish said that you're pater from the bone. Ad kan lam kam Rish Lakish hasam. Over there, Rish Lakish only said that you're pater by the bone. Ella di parish mini lav mitzvah suke. We have a rule that the bone does not need to go on the altar, but if it's attached to the meat, you put it on the altar. If for whatever reason it was detached, it doesn't need to go back up. So
like a tchila b'di'evet.
Yeah, if it's attached, then you put it on. If it's right. Detached, then you don't put it on independently. So here, if it would be detached, you don't put it on. Abal hacha, when it comes to the salt, the parish, if the salt would fall off the head of the yaina of the bird, mitzvah asuki, it's a mitzvah to put it back onto the mizbeah. Based on the pasuk, l'sash bris melach bris, that you're supposed to put salt with every sacrifice. Right. So even if it falls off, you put it back on. So here, maybe we should say that since there's a mitzvah to put it back on, it should complete the shear.
Or salt or something.
Yeah, kosher salt. So.
What do you? Great salt.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember some guy was making me crazy. Why does salt need to be kosher? It's kosher salt. I said, no, it's kosher salt with salt for koshering salt. So, because you weren't supposed to use very thick salt because it would fall right off. You weren't supposed to be very thin salt because it would just strain off. It was but like in the middle, like a coarse salt. So that was kosher salt for the koshering. Anyway, I don't think he liked my answer. So the Parshas Lasuk, the Gemara says so. Therefore, Rish Lakish would say that there's going to be a difference between the salt versus the bone. The bone you'd be pater because it's not a kazais, but the salt is supposed to be there. Or maybe whatever's the machlekes by the bone would be the same machlekes. Maybe it's different, maybe not. So in other words, it's not an automatic connection that this exact same machlekes about the exact same shaila about the salt is going to be the machlekes. It doesn't fit perfectly.
Where they have to stand there and salt, keep it the same level of salt.
I'm not sure. They definitely have to put salt with it. Question is
But
if
some
it's
of it is in the
they dip it in salt and they put it in the thing.
They had metrics.
sweat. Salt and salt.
No, it's on the fire already. Right? Yeah. Okay. Are you asking about salting meat? Are you asking salting or are you talking about the carbon? On the Mizbeach. Yeah, so they would put it directly on the fire. The salt was on the ramp. They take it, dip it in the salt and put it on the fire. Right? Asking if a piece of salt fell off before it got onto the fire.
Right, while it was in the fire, because
No, while it's on the fire, it's in the fire. That's not a problem. Right?
The height is have to be because ice on the fire.
Ugh. Yeah. Yaisi Aglili Yomer. I have to go back and explain what Rabbi Yossi Aglili said. Rabbi Yossi Aglili's opinion was that when you offer a sacrifice outside the temple, sacrifice has to be kosher. In order for it to be kosher, you had to have slaughtered it inside the temple. Because if you slaughtered it outside the temple, then you invalidated it
Oh,
by slaughtering it outside the temple. So now when you offer it up on an altar, it was already puzzle. So the only way for you to have a sacrifice that would be prohibited to offer outside the temple would be if it was slaughtered in the temple. And then they go on to have another machlekes about someone that's tamei that eats tamei food. It says no, it wasn't eligible anyway because the food was tamei. Rabbi basically says that that's not, you won't be chayav for eating tamei food, only if he eats tar food. Sages said back to him, but every person that's eating food, every person that's tamei, eating pure food, is making it tamei while he's eating it. So, in the similar, they said back to him about the sacrifice that while you're bringing it up, I think they said while you're bringing. Did they respond to him? They said while you're bringing it up, when you take it out. They said like this. They said even when you take it out from the you make it puzzle. Even if you slaughter it inside, but once you take it out, even before you bring it up, you already made it puzzle. So yeah, that's the argument with Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Yossi Aglili wants everything perfect until the final moment. Okay, Heishiv Rebbe Tachas Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rebbe positions himself to respond for Rabbi Yossi Aglili to the sages. It says like this. When someone slaughters the sacrifice inside the temple, and then he brings it outside, but over there, at least it had one point where it was eligible to be brought up on the altar after it was slaughtered inside. However, it's much worse when it's slaughtered outside. It never was even eligible to be brought on into the Beis Hamikdash because it was slaughtered outside. So therefore, you should be pater. What's the big deal that you didn't bring it inside the Beis Hamikdash? It wasn't even eligible. Okay, that would be Rebbe's response to the sages. They said that even if you slaughtered it inside, once you brought it outside, you invalidated it. So why would you be chayav? He's saying no, but at least it had one time when it was eligible. Eshiv Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon, Tachas Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon decides that he's going to answer in place of Rabbi Yossi Aglili back to the sages. Mala sheichet b'fnim, mala b'chutz, shekein kodesh mekable. Very interesting. If someone slaughtered inside the temple, brings it outside, and then he brings it back in, so it became invalidated because it was yatsa. It was invalidated. However, if it did go on the altar, you don't take it off. Kodesh mekable. If bidi avid, once it went up on the altar, it's still supposed to stay there. However, but if you originally slaughtered it outside, then even if you bring it in and you put it on the altar, you still take it off the altar. So there's a difference here.
I remember many times that people respond on capital letters.
We do have it. We have it all the time because it says Amalach. We have all the
So
time.
someone's saying on behalf of.
All the time we have what would he say to this? He would respond the following. He's not here, but here you're right. We have names that they're saying because these are earlier stages. What's happening is this is a brisa that's continuing a conversation that had ended, right? So we have Rebbe and Rabbi Bar Shimon that are continuing a conversation with Rabbi Seglili. Rabbi Seglili is not so much earlier. He's a friend, student of Rabbi Akiva. And Rebbe and Rabbi Bar Shimon are children of Rabbi Akiva's students. So it's like one generation off. Yeah. My binayu, what's the difference between Rebbe's response and Rabbi Bar Shimon? Rebbe said, Shasa Kaisha, and Rabbi Shimon said, Kodesh Makable, right? You get the Rebbe said that it had a moment of eligibility. It was at one point he could have offered up, and Rabbi Bar Shimon said that if it would have been on the altar would have received it. So he says the difference is like this: Amar Zeiri, Shchitas Laila, it could be Nayo. If it was slaughtered at night inside the Azara, according to Rebbe, it never had a Shasa Kaisha. It was slaughtered at night. It was possible even from the very beginning. However, according to Rabbi Bar Shimon, it doesn't matter. If it was put on the altar, it would stay there. But the rule is anything that became pasul b'kodesh, anything that became pasul inside the courtyard, if it's put on the altar, you don't take it off. It's able to stay there. So according to Rabbi Bar Shimon, slaughtered by night would still stay on the altar. Yeah, if it would stay on the altar, then according to Rabbi Glili, if you would take it outside the temple now and offer it, then that would be a prohibition because the altar could receive it, right? It could be acceptable by the altar. Rebbe follows the potential Shasa Kaisha, and Rabbi Bar Shimon also follows the potential. Yeah, we're looking over here in Rabbi Glili that the potential that it had would. Rabba Amar Kabbalah b'klicholak kabinai. Rabba says if the blood was received in a mundane vessel, that could be a difference between Rebbe and Rabbi Bar Shimon. So according to Rebbe, it was never eligible because the very original blood was already messed up because you used the klichal. However, according to Rabbi Bar Shimon, you'd still be chayev because such a karban, if it was put on the altar would receive it. Okay, in the machlekes between Rabbi Glili and the sages, we had also someone that's tameh that eats tameh food, right? It says tameh she'achal bein kodesh. It says bein kodesh tameh bein kodesh tar. According to Rabbi Bar Shimon, according to Rabbi Glili, you're going to be, according to the sages, you'll be chayev. According to Rabbi Glili, only a tameh person that eats tar food is going to be chayev. But if he eats tameh food, then that was never eligible. He's going to be pater. The Rabbanan responded to Rabbi Glili with the words. They said, every time a tameh person eats tar food, while he's eating it, he's making a tameh. So and he's chayev. So what's the difference if he made a tameh while he was eating it, or if it was tameh beforehand? It's because someone else made a tameh. So the Gemara says, that's a very good response. What's Rabbi Glili going to say to that? Amarava kol heichad nitma b'tamasaguf acher nitma tabasut kol yamalei pligi b'chayev. Shkein tamasaguf b'karis. Ki pligi b'shnit tabasut achkach nitma aguf. Rabbanan savri damrin and migo. Rabbi Savalei damrin and migo. A little bit of a complexity here, but we've had this before. We had a big sugya in this in Kulin. We've had it in other places also. It's called Isser Chalal Isser. If it's prohibited, does another prohibition go on top of it? It's saying like this. This meat is prohibited because it's tummy. And the person is not allowed to eat it because he's tummy. The question is, what was tummy first? And if it was tummy first, does the second prohibition apply? So the Gemara says, Rava says that if the person was tummy,
he was first.
The tumas aguf, the person was tummy, and then the meat became tummy. Then everyone agrees that you'll be chayev. because that was the first prohibition. Where's the machlekes? If the meat became tamei, and afterwards the person became tamei. Now the question is, on tamei meat, can you have a second prohibition on top of it that there's tamas haguf, that the person, now the person that's now tamei is not only not allowed to eat this piece of meat that's tamei, which he was prohibited to eat beforehand because it was tamei, but he's also not allowed to eat any other kodesh meat. So that's called iser kailal. Do we say that since there's other meat now that he can't eat? It goes like this: Mitoich shechala iser al shara chatichas, chala iser afal chatichasu. That's the expression. Migu, just as he's now prohibited to eat other pieces of meat, that prohibition spreads over to the piece of meat that he was forbidden to eat as well earlier. That's because we're able to get that prohibition to stick on another piece of meat, so now it's able to spread over to the piece of meat that was prohibited beforehand as well. So it's going to be iser chalal iser. However, Rabbi Yosef Glili would hold. He says no. He says other pieces of meat you're not allowed to eat now. Fine, because those are tar. However, when it comes to this piece of meat, you weren't allowed to eat even beforehand. So if you weren't allowed to eat it even beforehand, it doesn't become re-prohibited, another prohibition on it. Yeah. That's so it's machlekes about Isra Chalal Isra. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yosef Glili, Nehida Migula Yamrinan. I get it that he doesn't say Isra Kailal, which the Gemara here is calling Migu. Migu means just as. Just as. Migu could also mean since. Just as if the prohibition applies to certain pieces of meat, which are tar, it also should apply to this. However, Tesi Tamas Guf Techamir V'Tachal Tamas Basar. What about Isra Chamer? If you have a Isra Chamer, if Tumas Haguf is much stricter than Tumas Basar. If the person is Tamei and he's eating a sacrifice, it's much stricter than if the sacrifice is Tamei. If the person is Tamei and needs a sacrifice, there's Issachar. If the meat is Tamei, there's no Issachar. So we should say that since it's much stricter, Tumas Haguf is stricter, it should fall on the Isser Basar. Rav Ashi says, Tumas Haguf Chamura, who tells you that the Tumas Haguf is actually stricter? Dilma Tumas Basar Chamura Shkenein Letara B'Mikvah. I get it. On one hand, you're right. On one hand, the person, it's much stricter because it's Issachar. On the other hand, though, the person can go to the mikveh. Right. But the meat you can't put meat in the mikveh. You can't kosherize. You can't purify food that became tamei by putting it in the mikveh. You can only purify in the mikveh a person or a vessel, not food. What's wrong? We're up to Mishnah.
10%.
I forgot to charge the battery.
Portable charger. The wrong one.
No portable charger. Oh, oops. The generator.
You be quiet.
Dr. Stein Shaspad is on 10%. So they're making a big deal.
First time
we could
ever.
say Mishavera.
Yeah, first time.
Chaymer b'shchita mi ba'aliyah, ba'aliyah mi b'shchita. Next Mishnah discusses the two prohibitions of slaughtering a sacrifice outside the temple and the other prohibition of offering a sacrifice outside the temple. Mishnah says that there's a stringency in the shchita over the offering, and there's a stringency in the offering over the shchita. Chaymer b'shchita, a stringency in the shchita over the offering. Sha'asheichet lehedyet. Someone slaughters this, you have to recognize that this animal was consecrated. So if someone has an animal that's kachim, and he takes it outside the temple, and instead of offering up to Hashem outside the temple, he just shechs it for food. He's chayiv. He's chayiv because he slaughtered a sacrifice outside the temple. But if someone offers it up for a hedyet, now offering up for a hedyet, we have to switch the pshat over here. You have to say he offers it up to an idol, which means not to God. The prohibition that we were discussing now is not he's not offering something to an idol. He's offering it to Hashem. Just it's not in the temple. But let's say he doesn't offer it to Hashem. Let's say he offers it to an idol. So then he's going to be chayav for the idol, but he's going to be pater for kachim bachutz. Right? So he'll be exempt. B'mayla lehedya, it's pater. He'll be exempt from offering a sacrifice to outside the temple. Okay, so we see that shchita, even if it's not for Hashem, is chayiv, but Maila, not for Hashem, is going to be pater.
Except if it's not led to work. He said.
Yeah, no, if it's, he's chayiv for Avodah Zarah, we're ignoring the detail that he's chayiv for something else. We're saying he's exempt for kachim bachutz. Chaymer ba'aliyah, what's the stringency of offering? Say, if two people hold on to the knife. I forget, there's a Mishnah in Chulin about, there's a type of knife that has two handles on it. Was it like a cheese knife or something? I think it was has two handles, one on each end. Yeah.
It's like the saw.
There's the saw like that. Oh, because they have two people on it, yeah. So if you use something like that, so for shchita, you're pater. Because shnaim shasu, two people didn't. But if two people are achsu be'ever, behelu is chayavim. But if two people grab onto a limb of the animal and they carry it up the altar, they put it on the fire, so that they would be chayav. Okay. You see a stringency in offering it up over shchita. Another halacha is hella b'chasav hella. If it was already brought up from this animal, and then he realizes that I shouldn't have done that, and then he forgets again, and he brings up another piece. So these people, they say, "My bad," and then they do it again. You can't tell them anything. They said, "My bad." So they're exempt. Okay, because of a hella, and then they bring it up again. So chayav al kol aliyah is chayav for each one. Because, like we said, that there's in one forgetting, it's considered one prohibition. But if it's in more than one forgetting, then notice if they recognize it in between, so it becomes a new prohibition. Divrei Reb Shimon, Rabbi Yossi Eimer ein chayav ela achas. You only chayav one for the same sacrifice. Another thing Rabbi Yossi says, ve'ein chayav ad sheyala l'reish hamizbeach. You only chayav if you bring it all the way up to the top of the altar. Reb Shimon Eimer afilu hela al sela eleven chayav. It doesn't have to be altar. It doesn't even, you put it on any rock. You put it on a stone or a rock. I don't know what the difference between a cellar or an avenue. You say stone or rock? What's the difference?
Plymouth Rock versus rock.
Is there a difference in English between a stone and a rock?
Rock.
I think one is stayed in the same place from the beginning of time, and one is movable.
Oh, very good. Maybe you're right.
It must be.
You're my rock.
Right.
Foundation.
Okay. Sela would mean the original stone. Maishna, the Gemara's Maishna, Ma'aleh the Potter. Why? What's the reason why if someone offers it up to an idol, he's going to be Potter from Allah's chutz, from offering a sacrifice outside?
Heaven is stone.
I would say it's a rock.
Okay, so then that goes because heaven shtia has since the beginning. So we have the same Hebrew.
But I would say the dome of the stone. The translation, what do they know? Okay. Yeah. So, what's the difference? That if he offers it up to an idol, he's exempt from halas chutz. He's chayav because of the idol. Because the ksiv l'Hashem, it says in the pasuk, it says that he doesn't bring it to the tent of meeting. He doesn't bring it to the Oyel Ma'id to offer it to Hashem. Because it says the word Hashem in there, it means that he's only going to be chayav if he offers it to Hashem. He won't be chayav if he offers it for an idol. So the problem is, b'shchita nami yaksiv la'Hashem, but b'shchita it also says la'Hashem. Why'd we say that he'd be chayav for the shchita when he slaughters it not for Hashem? Why should it be chayav? It has to be for Hashem. Mashashani hasam By the shchita, it's different. Damakra, because the pasuk starts off saying ish ish, a man, a man. Now the Gemara learns from the way the Gemara is learning it is that even a man that's slaughtering it for a man would still be chayav. Ish ish, that literally means any man. That's how you translate ish ish, any man. But we're saying ish shashachat leish, a man that slaughtered it for a man. That's how we're learning it now. Gabriela Namiksev ish ish. 1 second, but it says ish ish by the offering it up. So you're trying to make a distinction between sacrifice, between slaughtering and offering, but it turns out that the same words that he uses here, he uses there. Sorry?
Any man, and then it says like
Yeah, we're looking at the words though. Why does it have to say ish ish? Ish ish in Hebrew. Each word ish means a man, and ish means a man. He says it twice. So that type of phrase we translate into English as any man. But the Gemara is taking it a step further. It's saying that a man that slaughters it for another man would still be chayav. So 1 second, but it says ish ish also by offering it up. So the Gemara says that over there we needed to say the ish ish is coming to tell me that even if two people offer up the sacrifice, that they're chayav. Two people bring up the same limb, they're chayav. So maybe it should tell me that if two people slaughter it, they're chayav. It says Shani Hasam Damakra Hahu. It says V'nechras Yesh Hahu. That man will be cut off. When it says Hahu, it means a singular. It means there's only one man that's being cut off by the shechita. It says Echad V'leishnayim. That means one and not the other, not two. Yihachi Gabi Allah Nami Haksiv Hahu. But by Allah it also says Hahu. V'nechras Yesh Hahu. The Gemara says Mi Bayile that Hahu. But over there we need it for something else. We need Lemute Shoygig Anas Amutta. It's coming to tell me that if someone offers it outside the temple b'shoygig, or if it was so he was forced to do it, unpreventable circumstances, or it was mutter, or people convinced him that it was mutter. He was tricked. That all of these cases he's going to be pater from karis, right? He'd be pater from karis. It says hahu b'nechzis means only if it's intentional and it wasn't forced and like that. But what about shchita? It says hahu as well. Maybe it should tell me that it's coming to exclude that if it was done with unpreventable circumstances, that it should be exempt. Gemara says trei hahu ksivi. By the shchita, it says twice hahu. One of them teaches me shegigainis mutter, if it was unpreventable circumstances. The other one teaches me that if two people do the shchita, they're exempt if they use that two-handled knife. So then why does it say Lashem? It's coming to tell me lahaitzi sar mishtaleach. It's coming to tell me, very interesting case. If the guy that they send him out to bring the animal to Azazel, and he has a long walk to take, he has to take it to the cliff. He decides to shecht it instead. As on his way, he decides to shecht it. So we say over there that he's not going to be chayiv. It says La Hashem. Why is it not? Because it's not. Only something that's eligible to be offered as a sacrifice would have this prohibition. But since this was already excluded from that because he did the lottery already and the Kohen Gadol did his confession, and then he takes it out, so this was already excluded from going to Hashem. So this he'd be exempt if the guy slaughters it. He won't have the prohibition of offering a sacrifice outside the temple. Interesting. Trivia question. Give me an example of a sacrifice that would be exempt. Yeah, Stump the Rabbi. They stopped doing that game, Stump the Rabbi game.
Too many rabbis.
Okay. Chaimer Ba'ala. We said that there's a stringency of offering up a sacrifice outside the temple over slaughtering it.
Right.
Over slaughtering it. Because by the offering it up, two people offered up, you'd be chayav, but slaughtering it, you'd only be chayav if it was one person that was doing the slaughtering, not if two people are doing the slaughtering. Taner Rabbanan, study in Braish. Ish says any man talking about that offers up a sacrifice outside the temple. And it continues to say that there's kares. Ma Talmud Laimar, why does it have to say ish? The Rabbi Shnaim Shachsu Be'ever Vehelo Shachayavin. Coming to tell me that if two people grab onto one of the limbs of the animal, it could be heavy, and they carry it up, they're going to be chayiv. Yachav alaydinu, because I could have thought that maybe there's a kal v'chayim here. Ma sheichet lehedyet. If someone shechs outside the temple, and he doesn't have intention for Hashem, it's a sacrifice, but he slaughtered it just to eat. He's shechayev. And Shnayim shachsu b'sakin v'shachtu is beturin. But if two people try to slaughter it, they'd be exempt. So in other words, we're seeing that there's a stringency in shchita, but nevertheless you're pater when two people do it. So hamayla lehadiyet pater, where it's lenient because offering it up for an idol exempts you from kachim bachutz. It's not considered kachim bachutz. So in a din sheshnayim shachsu beturin, for sure. If two people offer up the limb, for sure it should be pater. If we're shchita, where it's more strict, you're exempt. So by maila, by offering it up, where it's more lenient, for sure you should be exempt. Therefore it says ish. Reb Shimon. So Reb Shimon tells us that the ish is coming to teach us that if two people offer it up, you're going to be chayav. Rabbi Yossi says that if two people offer it up, you're going to be pater. Why? It says hahu. One, which means only one and not two. So what is Rabbi Yossi going to say about the ish that Rabbi Shimon taught me that it means even if two people do it? He says, that's just typical language. Ish, that's typical. It means any man can't learn from that. That's what Rabbi Shmuel says this often. Rabbi Shmuel says, that's to realize that Torah is speaking in language that we are supposed to understand, so it uses human language. Reb Shimon, hahu, what does he do with the word hahu? Reb Shimon says that Yechayev, and Reb Yossi said hahu tells me that he's pater. So what does Reb Shimon do with the word hahu? Like we said before. It's coming to tell me that he's exempt if he was tricked into it or if it was unpreventable circumstances. Rabbi Yossi, what does Rabbi Yossi do? He's with unpreventable circumstances. He already used the hahu to tell me that only one person would be chayav, but not two. It says may hahu. It says it could have said who, and it says hahu, coming to teach me that two things you can learn. Reb Shimon, hu hahu laydarish. He doesn't learn from hu hahu. That's interesting. Rabbi Yossi, that's so like disregarding the ish, is ready to learn from the extra hey. And Reb Shimon that says no, it says an extra word. He says no, the extra hey is difficult. Okay, Rabbi Yossi mida ha ish dibitarkel v'shmi adam. If ish by offering it outside is just typical language, and you can't learn from that. Ahu ish. Nami dibitar klash adam. So the other ish that it says by shchita should also be dibitar klash adam. Well, how do you know that if someone slaughters it for another man, just for food, that he should be chayiv? It says nafkale midam yichashiv lishahu dam shafach afilu sheichet lish. It says over there that it's considered blood to the person. It's considered spilt blood to the person that slaughtered, that spills the blood. That means even if it's slaughtered for a person, he's still going to be chayav. Okay. We learned in the Mishnah that hella v'chaz v'hella you'd be chayav according to Reb Shimon, and if you forgot in the middle, and if you forgot, forgot, so then you'd be chayav as if it's a separate prohibition. Rabbi Yossi says you're only going to be chayav one. Amrei Shlakish says machlekes bedaled v'hei evarim. Machlekes over here is when you're offering up different limbs. The Mar Sava, Rabbi Yossi would hold kiksiv, lasais isai, and it says to the entrance of the tent of meeting, he did not bring it to perform it. Lasais isai, to perform it, not to means to bring the sacrifice. What does it mean to bring the sacrifice? So it says, "Ala shalim uchayev ein chayev ala chaser." Oisai means the complete one. So he's only going to be chayev if it's complete. Ve'ein chayev ala chaser. Akol behemeksiv. He's only going to be chayev if it's complete. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi was saying that just because you're bringing up different limbs and you forget in the middle, that you only chayev when the whole sacrifice is there. Mar Savar and Reb Shimon holds Akol Ever Ever. That last Sisai is not referring to the entire animal; it's referring to each limb has its own prohibition. So each limb would be chayev. Aval Ever Echad. But if there would be one limb that was cut in half, and every time you bring up a piece of it, you want to say that you forgot, and then you remembered, and then you forgot. But Divrei Akol in a chayev alachas, you're only going to be chayev one, because that's only one offering up. Even according to Reb Shimon, that holds it chayev on every one, but not if it's a half of one. Rabbi Yochanan says that the machlekes be'ever echad. Machlekes is only when you're offering up one limb and you divide it in half. The Mar Savar Muktari Pnim Shechasru Vehela B'chutz Chayev, that something that was supposed to go inside the temple, because it was slaughtered inside the temple, and then you brought it outside. You brought half a limb outside. So Reb Shimon would hold that Yechayev, that it doesn't need to be a whole limb, a whole organ to be chayev. Reb Shimon say you automatically chayev, and so therefore when you bring up another half a limb, you're going to be chayev again. Mar Savar and Rabbi Yossi holds that he's pater, because the Torah only prohibited an entire limb. That was Aval B'Daled the Hey Evarim Divrei Akol Chayev Akol Ever. But everyone would agree that you're going to be chayev on each and every one. So there's a machlekes Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan on what the machlekes is. Yeah, there's a machlekes Reb Shimon and Rabbi Yossi, and there's a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish what the machlekes is. Upligi de Ula and Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish are both arguing on Ula. Damar Ula Hakol Maidim. Everyone agrees Muktarim Prim Shechasar V'Hela B'chutz Shechayev. That's something that was slaughtered inside and it was offered up outside, that you're going to be chayev even if it's not complete, which that would disagree with Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi said it needed to be complete. The whole machlekes is if something that was slaughtered outside, Muktari Chutz, as opposed to Muktari Pnim. Where was the sacrifice originally slaughtered? So we were saying before that we're talking about that was slaughtered inside, and now you're offering it outside, and there's a machlekes, each limb. Okay, Ula says that the whole machlekes is about Muktari Chutz, where it was slaughtered outside. We are slaughtered outside. The Mar Savar Rabbi Yossi would hold that he's pater, because half a limb is nothing. The Mar Savar chayev, and Reb Shimon would hold that you chayev on each limb on its own. Ikad Amri, others say Amar Ula Kol Maidim Muktari Chutz Shechasar V'Hela B'chutz Shu Pater. Everyone holds that the Ula says that everyone holds that if it's slaughtered outside, that you're going to be exempt if it's not complete, if it's not the whole animal. When it's slaughtered inside and then it's missing a piece, and you offer it outside. The Mar Savar Pater, Rabbi Yossi would hold Pater, and because it's not complete, and that's why he holds even if you offer up a bunch of them, it's only going to be one prohibition. And Mar Savar Chayev, another one says, Reb Shimon holds that you're going to be Chayev. Pliga Davua de Shmuel, and this argues on Avua de Shmuel. Pliga Davua de Shmuel, Alish Nekama de Ula. According to the first version of Ula, where the machlekes was Muktari Chutz, that's going to argue on Avua de Shmuel. Damar Avua de Shmuel. Shmuel's father says, Man Mahadrin and Paikin Legam Mizbeach. According to which opinion do you return things that popped off the altar? You have to put them back on. Come on, the Lake Rabbi Yossi. It doesn't fit with Rabbi Yossi. Because Rabbi Yossi holds that when you offer part of a limb up, it's not considered an offering. Of half a limb is not considered offering. So, if we would have to bring the limb back up, it can't be according to Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi would say that's not considered, and that's not considered anything, a half a limb. Okay. Only chayev until you bring it to the top of the altar. And that was the first opinion. Reb Shimon says that yechayev even if you just put it on a rock. Rav Huna, my time with Rabbi Yossi. Why does Rabbi Yossi say it has to go to the top of the altar? The Ksiv, even Nayach Mizbeach L'Hashem. It says Nayach built an altar. It was outside the temple. And Nayach offered sacrifices, but it wasn't Mizbeach. Rav Yechon, my time with Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Yechon said, what's Rabbi Shimon's reason that says even Rak? The Ksiv, V'ikach Manayach Es Kediyis Mesamincha V'yal Al Atzur LaHashem. He put it on a flintstone. That's not in that little wagon with the feet going. He put it on a stone. This is Manayach. This is Shimshon's father. After he sees the angel, he offers the sacrifice, right? V'idach. What does Reb Shimon do with Baksiv? V'idach nami Baksiv even Mizbeach LaHashem. It says by Noach that he built an altar. Who goiva ba'alma? That was just because he wanted to raise it up. Not because that's the way you have to do it. That's just the way he did it.
Easier to use.
V'idach, and what does Rabbi Yossi do with the tzur? V'idach nami, aksiv v'ikach manayach. It says that he used a rock, a flintstone. Rasha, he said that was just a temporary thing. That's not the typical. What you're supposed to do is actually use the altar. If you want, we can have another shot. Hainatam with Reb Shimon. Why does Reb Shimon say that it doesn't need to be on an actual altar? Kedetanya was taught in the Brayso. Reb Shimon Aimer, Mizbeach Pesach Oyel Mayed. Ve'in Mizbeach Bebama. It says that the Kohen will sprinkle the blood on the Mizbeach of Hashem at the entrance tent of meeting, but that's only in the tent of meeting where you need a Mizbeach, but not when it's outside. Pikachel al Evan, you're going to be chayiv. Yatsa mi ba'ilei. The problem with the way it started off was when you're allowed. It sounds like you're saying when you're allowed to offer a sacrifice outside the temple, you don't need to have an actual altar. So it should say even if you offer it on a rock, you're yatsa. You fulfill the obligation. Why does it say chayiv? It says hachi kamar. Lafika. Therefore, b'shas yisur bamis and other times of history when you're not allowed to offer it, halal 11 is going to be chayiv. The laws of Abama have the same laws of the Mizbeach. Do you need to have a corner? Do you need to have a ramp? Do you need to have a foundation? Does Abama need to be square? Okay. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah responds to Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina. He says, Tanya, these are only things that are necessary for a large altar, which means the Mizbeach, but they're not necessary for outside the temple. Okay, we're holding at Kuftes.
Okay.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Kind of interesting. You're learning from Noah. Noah wasn't Jewish.
I guess we're saying that
He was a tzaddik.
that at that time, I think the laws of sacrifices for learning for sacrifices outside the temple, we're actually learning from before the giving of the Torah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was Noach himself considered Jewish?
No, I don't think so. Right? That's the whole thing.
Why was there a restriction? Well, there's clearly a restriction on what sacrifices he was allowed to bring.
Right.
Maybe Noach himself was Jewish, just Bnei Noach are not Jewish.
But there's a whole thing about how Noah needed an introduction, while Abraham did not. It's just like the Rabbi talks about this, right? That there's like an automatic connection that Abraham has, and Noah had to earn it.
In general, this is an interesting concept that we're learning the halachas of this from before Matan Torah.
Yeah.
No one said anything.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I think also the who holds hoo was would bring a carbon at night because the owls are hooting. Hoo. Bye.
Okay. Okay, great.